Hey everybody, Stacks here. Welcome back to the channel, guys. One good thing about, I guess, the current... That's not even a good thing. I can't even fake it. I get to go back and do some books that I skipped because they were either horrible or because I just didn't have time to get them knocked out. So today I'm jumping back and checking out Excalibur 6, and I'll let you decide for yourself why I skipped it. If you're already subscribed to the channel, definitely welcome back. And if you're new, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new content we got coming out here. If you're not caught up on Excalibur, I'll leave the link for my playlist down below. You can go check it out and get caught up on the 5 previous videos I did on this, and you'll be ready to go for this one. So just come back when you're done there. Fair warning, I'm not too kind to Tini Howard on some of these books because it's got some nonsensical stuff in here, but I'm going to try to be nice on this one, all right? So let me try to get you caught up. So Rogue was still in her coma, and Apocalypse sent Richter and Gambit down into the depths of the earth in order to find some crystals that were formed from dead mutants. Their bones somehow formed these crystals, and he's going to use them to power this gateway. Well, somehow Richter accidentally tapped into that power and used the power within those crystals to save Gambit's life. So Gambit is, you know, in Apocalypse's view, not really worth it, especially being that they could have just, you know, brought him back. You know, just kick in the resurrection protocols and had another dude. But they don't have these crystals now, therefore Apocalypse does not have his power source. Well, Gambit goes at Apocalypse, absolutely gets beat down, and then that's just the appropriate time where Rogue comes within the Otherworld and joins the Krakoa and Otherworld with her heart and mind. That's not something I made up. That's something that was actually here. But because of that, she wakes up. She goes, she sees Gambit laying on the ground, she tries to save him, and that's when Apocalypse gets the bright idea that I can be the power source. Use me, drain my power, and then that will somehow complete this funky ritual, and then Apocalypse can complete whatever it was he's trying to do here, which we know is somehow take over Otherworld, which we assumes has more to do with going and saving his original 4 horsemen and that whole storyline. All right, so getting into Excalibur number 6. Because Apocalypse is a member of the Quiet Council, he jumps to the front of the resurrection line. So he is immediately resurrected back on Krakoa. And of course, Professor X is there doing his thing, and he's kind of hesitant. He's like, look, I gotta tell you, I'm disappointed in that you using our mastery over death to your own ends. I don't know what I expected, but I'm hoping moving forward, I just want you to know I'm trusting you. And he tells him, you're a part of this. You're my brother, and you are a mutant. And at that point, a hand reaches out and grabs him and says, hey, sorry I'm late, mate. And it ends up being Jamie Braddock. And Jamie Braddock helps him up, throws him his robe, and he's obviously something going on here. And they take off, and they have, hey, we don't have time to linger. We got to get back. Back with Morgan Le Fay, the White Witch has pushed her armies, and her throne is now actually threatened. So she's having to fight in this battle when suddenly this giant burst of light just slams down from above. And she immediately knows that Apocalypse is up to something. And once that Tower of Light is gone, Excalibur is standing there, Shogo and all. And they are ready to dethrone Morgan Le Fay. Well, as the battle goes on, somehow the group ends up... we're talking about some serious mutants here, right? Gambit, Jubilee, Rogue, Captain Britain, Betsy Braddock style, and Richter, and they have a dragon. Well, they end up getting pinned down by a bunch of dudes with bow and arrows. I mean, I'm calling it shenanigans, but they do, and they got a plan. Captain Britain's waiting for a break in the arrows, and they're going to charge. When Apocalypse, he's in a weakened state, but he wanders up, and he's like, it's time for a parlay. And what Apocalypse offers is, rather than them having a battle and a bunch of people dying needlessly, for a simple duel of champions. The champions, of course, would be Betsy Braddock versus Brian Braddock. And Morgan Le Fay figures she can't lose, because, I mean, she's convinced, like, Brian, he'll kill her. And Apocalypse points out, yeah, and if he dies, she will return, because she's a mutant, just like I have. And, well, Morgan kind of turns that on its head and says, well, that means he's going to fight like he has something to lose, and she's gonna fight like one who assumes life is cheap. The way she sees it stacking up, she can't lose. So with the champion selected, the terms are set that there is no yielding, and to the death. They will fight to the death, and the winner receives the Kingdom of Avalon. Now, once the fight starts, Apocalypse reaches out to Jubilee and says, look, stay close, Jubilee. I may have need of Shogo's flames. Don't interfere with the fight, but just stay ready. And she's like, whoa, hold up a minute. We melted reality last time we did that. And he's like, trust me, I've remedied that. Worry not. I would like to tell you that the fight is back and forth and that, you know, Betsy's almost on, you know, the verge of losing at some point, but she's really not. She takes a swipe. Brian goes down, and then he comes back, takes a swing. She struggles and tries to pull his sword away from him, saying, you know, I've laid down my weapon. Now you lay down yours. And then they somehow get it contorted to where she jams this 6-foot blade through his chest accidentally. And it's at that point, with the sword coming out of the back of Brian, that Brian notices Jamie sitting over on the throne. And Jamie kind of says, oh, watching this tussle, it makes me feel like a kid again. And Apocalypse, standing right beside him, looks over at Jubilee and tells her, now Jubilee. And Shogo lights the place up. But with Brian still sitting there dying and Betsy cussing Apocalypse saying, I should have never trusted you, you monster, Apocalypse walks up to Morgan Le Fay and says, your champion's been defeated. Bend the knee to my king and you will be shown mercy and permitted to live your days in exile. And she's like, who is the jester you claim is king? And Apocalypse kneels right there before King Jamie Braddock of Avalon. Jamie, real quick, has had enough of Morgan Le Fay, puts her in her cage and says, look, we'll figure out what to do with you later. And then Betsy approaches Jamie and demands that him, you know, being a reality warper, brings Brian back to life now. And since she's kind of stepping on his boys at the moment, he's in a hurry to cooperate, if you know what I mean. Of course he does, and they go into some inter-family arguments about, you know, who told who what, and it doesn't really matter. But Betsy comes across at the end saying, look, you can't be serious about making him king. And Apocalypse like, oh, en contraire, one of the most powerful mutants with a gift for unbinding and mending of reality, and truly a Braddock, Otherworld's most powerful family. Even our Dragonfire is no threat with him on the throne. There is no one more fit to rule. All hail King Jamie the First. Well, with all that being said and done, we jump to a couple scenes. The first one is of Gambit and Rogue. And basically the discussion here is, look, Rogue decides, you know what? I don't know. I know we're supposed to, you know, make more mutants, but I don't know if I want to have a baby. And Gambit's kind of like, you know, sounds good to me. Whatever. The other scene we get is of Brian. And Betsy walks in and he's holding the Sword of Might, and Betsy's like, look, where did you get that? And Brian has to explain that, look, Merlin and Roma came again in my dreams, and rather than choosing the amulet this time, I chose the sword. And he's torn up about this. He is torn up about what Morgan Le Fay did to him, what Morgan Le Fay made him do, and that it has had an effect on him, because all he felt when he saw the blade and the amulet, all he felt was anger. And that innocent Brian Braddock, who once spurned the blade and chose the amulet instead, he said, I am no longer him. I took the blade and I am no longer fit to be Captain Britain. And Betsy tries to reassure him, but he knows what's really going on here and tells her, look, as long as I am endowed with these powers, they're going to pit us against each other. You will never truly be Captain Britain as long as I wield the sword and I have its power. And with that, he just kind of decides to step aside, because it makes him sick to think about people trying to turn them against each other. So in the end, he hands her the sword and she hands him the amulet, and I guess they just traded, and we're good with that. Finally, we jump back to Otherworld, where Jamie Braddock is wandering around looking for Apocalypse, and when he does finally find him, he walks in on him doing some type of experiment or autopsy or something on Morgan Le Fay. I don't think she's dead, but he's sitting there doing research. And what we find out on the white page is that he is doing these experiments to figure out information about her genetic code, and something more specifically that has to do with her use of magic. So he's basically continuing to work towards his Mutant Sorcerer Supreme badge or whatever, and it's going to be interesting to see where else Apocalypse is going on this. I'm sure it's going to eventually tie into this Ten of Swords storyline that we're expecting to see. Was supposed to be sometime this summer, who knows when it's going to be now. But that storyline, in all likelihood, is going to tie heavily into Excalibur. We know that it's at least 3 issues of it are in the pages of Excalibur, and that only other title that's close to that is there are 3 issues, I think, also in the main title, X-Men. And in all honesty, that's one of the big reasons I'm coming back to Excalibur and doing these videos, is because I think some of this stuff is going to somehow tie into that big storyline. I will say, when you sit down and actually read this book, because I take a couple pages out here and there and eliminate some of the fluff, but in doing that, I'll tell you that the book, when I read it through the first time and the second time, the book has really, really poor pacing. That's been something I've said on just about all these Excalibur books. It's when it gets to something happening, it happens real quick, and we're done with it. We build up to something, done real quick, and on to the next step. One example in this issue that I cut out was there's a scene between the moment where Betsy Braddock finds out that she's been named a champion and has to fight her brother. But before they get to the fight, where there's an entire page where she goes and sits down with Rogue and talks. And it's just, it throws everything off. It takes the dramatic effect out of that announcement that, hey, you're going to have to fight your brother to the death. Instead, it's like, well, let me go talk about how I feel about that with Rogue. And it's like, no, there should be, a good writer can show that and depict that without having to dedicate a whole page of, a conversation with another individual to it. I mean, she's having to go up against her brother. It's obvious that that's not going to be cool. It's to the death. That makes it even more not cool. I mean, it's common sense stuff. I do have to clown on the art here, because there is no way that they go from this picture of them holding the sword or jostling over the sword this way to then him suddenly buried, her having slipped and driven a sword like 4 foot into him. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. The hand position and how do you get from here to there makes absolutely no sense from an artistic perspective, and it's kind of crazy. Anyways, guys, I think that's all I got for this one. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. If you're not, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Leave a like. It helps the channel just draw more views. And if this video does pretty decent as far as views, I'll probably go ahead and combine the next couple issues of Excalibur into one and try to get that out pretty soon. Anyways, guys, stay safe out there, be careful, and wash your hands. That's all I got. Real Comic Stacks. Out.